looks like that Mary Landrieu is headed for a runoff down in Louisiana. They've already spent $50 million on that. They think they'll spend another $50 million just on the runoff. They're talking about a $100 million race in a governor's race in Florida. This thing is just the floodgates are open. There are no longer any more campaign laws.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Bob Schieffer last night on CBS. And before we get to our guest and talk about all the money spent on the campaigns around the nation, I want you to be reminded that Dick Morris, who was such an integral part of last night's election coverage here on Newsmax TV, Newsmax contributor and political pundit and analyst, he has a great new book out there. It is on the screen. It's called Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. So I strongly urge you, as I have been doing. It's an Amazon bestseller, #1 bestseller. It's been that way for well over a month now. Here's what you do. You go to powergrab411.com. That's powergrab411.com. Get your copy now. All right, joining us now is Forbes contributor Carrie Sheffield. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
And
How
you
you
come
been?
bearing gifts.
Yes, trick or treat.
Thank you so much.
Got some candy here.
Oh my gosh, I see
Please,
candy
help
corn.
yourself. Yep.
I
Yep.
see
I won't tell
Hershey
you what they're
bar,
laced with, but-
lemon head. I've never heard of that, but okay.
They're tangy.
Okay, so what's the purpose of this? You're making a point. I know it.
I am making a point. So we're talking about cuddly Bob Schieffer talking about campaign
Is that what
finance.
it is, cuddly Bob
He's
Schieffer?
kind of like an Ewok. He's very cuddly.
Okay, all right.
But I like it. He's very grandfatherly. But talking about, the influence of money in politics.
Yeah.
I brought this to put in context the amount of money that was spent this cycle is about as much as Americans spent on Halloween candy. And I'm okay with running our democracy. I mean, just putting it in perspective, I'm okay with that.
And how much money do we spend on Halloween and campaigns?
A little over $2 billion. So I mean, it depends on if you're talking candy versus costumes, and then outside influence
all right,
of
but still,
campaigns or direct.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
so
That is I did not know that, as Johnny Carson used to say. And by the way, Bob Schieffer once told me in a phone interview about a book of his several years ago. We ended the interview by him saying, "Anything else, Steve?" And he hung up. But that's a long story. All right, so we're talking about North Carolina, 78 million, Colorado, 64 million, Iowa, 56 million. This already broke the all-time record for most outside spending in a Senate race. I mean, the alternative, though, is what? Public financing of these campaigns?
right. Well, and I think that's what scares me as a conservative. If you look at the track record,
You seem a little nervous right now.
well, if you look at the IRS, if you look at the persecution of conservative groups that happened from our own government, do we have faith that our government would
No.
act nimbly and quickly enough and responsibly enough in a campaign situation
Absolutely
to the point where we would trust them with our democracy in a fair and even-handed way?
Well, the obvious answer is a rhetorical question. but see, okay, but here's the deal. Here's the conundrum, if you will. We favor Citizens United. At least I do. I favor that
Right,
case and
right.
that decision. Is it
upholds the
Citizens United, though, that has made all this possible, reinforced the legality of all this, or is that not true?
Well, I mean, that's what's thrown around, and it's cited as upholding the Constitution, which is freedom of speech.
Right.
And just this concept that corporations are people, or if you think about what is an institution? It is an assemblage of people, of individuals. So in that sense, it is an expression of freedom of speech. And look, going back, people say that this is, anonymous, shadowy financing popping up. I mean, our country has always had free dialogue. As long as you're not saying things that are inaccurate or libelous. I mean, go back to the Federalist Papers, where they were issued anonymously. I mean, people are able to express themselves, and who are we to have the government repress what is said?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, and by the way, the ABC News latest update, or the latest one I have, is that there was $100 million spent in North Carolina Senate race and $3.7 billion in 2014. And the Democrats would have you believe it was all spent by the Koch brothers.
Right, no, but as we know, it's
No, I mean, my
it's
goodness.
fairly evenly split.
Yeah.
And in fact, the candidates themselves, Democrats outspend as opposed to talking about
Yes.
these outside groups.
Yes.
So I mean, it's just
So where are we headed? I mean, obviously the 2016 presidential election is going to set an all-time record for spending, I would imagine, right? Because the more we go in time, the more the spending increases.
Yeah, no, I do agree that we want to know where money is coming from.
Yes.
I think in that sense,
Foreign
as
money,
journalists,
what kind of influence?
we don't want that
Yeah.
sort of influence.
Right.
I think we do want people to be engaged, to express themselves, to participate and petition our government.
Much of the same way they express themselves and engage on Halloween by saying trick or treat. So if I had come to your house, I would have had a real good time.
Yep.
Look
Yep.
at this.
And it's all a lesson in democracy.
All right. There she is, ladies and gentlemen, Carrie Sheffield. Thank you very much, Carrie. And we'll be back next with the associate editor for hotair.com, Noah Rothman. Now we're going to look at the pumpkin, I believe. I think we're going to look at the pumpkin. And here comes the pumpkin. There it is. Wow, look at it. It almost has a smile. Maybe all pumpkins do. I'm just not pumpkin savvy.